Now, we have sort of continuing our theme of keeping everybody alive in the afternoon in the post-lunch time. So on our team, the one person that we always turn to when we need to be woken up and need to be rejuvenated is Nana Furman, who has a sort of undeniably renewable source of energy deep within her. It's impossible to look at Nana and not smile. So Nana Furman, who directs our Muslim outreach and who is, as Nani said earlier, the Green Queen, has been Indonesian, has been sort of doing a great amount of work mobilizing the Muslim community on climate issues. So Nana.
Thank you, Reverend Fletcher. Well, I'm a renewable energy myself. So, well, thank you. And I greet you all with peace, salam, as my tradition said. So we've been listening to stories, some of very personal stories throughout this morning. So we all have stories within ourselves and how we struggle. I'm sure all of you who are here are interested in sustainable living, sustainable lifestyle. All of you also struggles. But how do we share our stories in an honest way? How do we also share our emotions, our concern that we face trying to embrace this sustainable living? So we're going to hear some of those stories from our amazing speakers just momentarily, from those speakers who are already here, as well as those who are through Zoom on the other side of the lake. Hi, Kea. So, hi, Kea. So, so we have with us Sabana Kiri. Where's Sabana? So, Sabana is here. And then Rabbi Kathy Allen. And we have Kea Chatterjee. And another one, we have Juan. Yes, how could I forget about Juan? He's a wonderful speaker. So I would like to invite Sabana and Juan to the podium. And let us hear their stories, and also from Kea and Rabbi Kathy on the other side of. So I would like to share. I would like to start with Kea, since Kea have a very limited time. So, and Kea is connecting from Washington D.C., United States. Kea, take it away.
Is that better? Yes. Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see Fletcher and Nana, and I saw the back of Gopal's head, and I almost feel like I'm there, and I'm so happy to be joining you. And thank you for your patience as we work out the technology. So climate change is an issue that has completely changed both my career and my life, and has really bled into the way that I lead my life. So I started working on this issue in 2002. I was working at NASA, and I'm one of multiple stories you always hear at NASA of people seeing data and freaking out. So that was me. I saw some Arctic sea ice data in 2002, and I just thought, oh my gosh, we're not going to have food and water, and nobody knows, and nobody's doing anything. And so I changed my career 48 hours after seeing that data, and about 6 months after that, I realized I needed to leave the federal government working as a scientist where I was, because there was somebody from ExxonMobil who was in the White House who was editing all our documents. And of course, at the time, this was very shocking. It actually ended up on the front page of the New York Times, these hand edits from a former ExxonMobil lobbyist who was in the White House. And now in the United States, we have the CEO of ExxonMobil as the Secretary of State, who actually has the ability to influence what is in IPCC documents, particularly summary documents. And so I came to this issue from a science perspective, then from a policy perspective, and then from this perspective of, well, we have corporate interests owning our government, and we need to do something about this. It was later that I came to the lifestyle elements of the issue of climate change, and I wish I could say it was a beautiful spiritual awakening that I had, or that there was something that I just realized one morning. But what actually happened was that I got into a huge fight with my utility that provides me with electricity. They were overcharging me, and we kept calling every month and explaining that we were getting way too much. And we were gradually starting to reduce what we were using in the house, and we weren't seeing the bill change. We were getting $300 bills. And one day, my husband called, and they said, "Do you have?" And he said, "Don't you have anything in the notes? Because for 3 years we've been calling every month, and saying that the bills are wrong." And they said, "Oh yeah, there's something here in the notes. It says your wife gets irate easily." And that was the spark for me. It was not actually a spiritual awakening. I cut off my electricity. I grabbed the phone. I was like, you know what? I don't want your dirty product. I work on climate change. I don't need this stuff. And so for 3 years, we lived without a refrigerator and without electricity, and we camped in our house. And that, for me, was the beginning of our journey towards sustainability. So it's not the most traditional route. It might not even be one that I recommend, but it was a fast way of doing it. And so suddenly I realized, like, wow, like, we have so much stuff that we don't need. And we just started, giving away some of the things that had plugs that we just weren't using. We learned how to keep ourselves warm in the winter with using sleeping bags and hot water bottles. I should say this was easier because we had hot water and we had like a camping stove. We learned really within one element of what we were doing how to be very, very sustainable in our homes. And so it's, I think part of it for me was I knew all of the things that I was supposed to be doing, but that spark for me that really made me go the extra mile was just getting mad at the utility. And from there, it really became a fun project that we were doing in the house that was around all kinds of things in our house. Eventually, we realized, as we were looking at our carbon footprint, we need to reduce in other areas as well. We were actually already vegetarian, but we, then tried to start planting more of our food and growing more of our food at home. So these were kind of incremental changes that we made. So now, we're at the point where, solar powers our home. We don't have a car. We tend not to use heat and air conditioning at all. We do have a fridge now. We have a super efficient refrigerator that uses very, very little electricity that we were able to find that gets made for cabins. And the refrigerator is the one thing we discovered. It doesn't have an off button, so it really, really was affecting the amount of electricity that we were able to use. And for me, the challenge really was, could I live a lifestyle that would be consistent with limiting warming to 1.5 degrees, with the goals of the Paris Agreement, assuming a world where we got the policies we needed, assuming the world where we had the kind of demand for a government that represents the interests of the people, just assuming that we win in this greater movement struggle that we are in, what are the changes that we would have to make anyway? And what I try and do is live those changes. And I see it having impacts every day. So I see it, I have a 7-year-old. We biked to school together. And the first day we biked to school together, we were the only bike in front of the school. Now they're installing new bike racks in front of our school because every day and more parents ask me oh, how do you do that? How does that work? How do we get there? And so I loved hearing about the bicycle ride that all of you are doing tomorrow. I will also be doing my daily bicycle ride tomorrow in solidarity while you are doing that. And I can tell you that doing it helps other people do it. It shows a model. It shows that this future that we're working towards, this future where it's not, a burn and dump and dig economy, where it's an economy where we take care of each other, that is possible. And in fact, we can start to live in it right now. We can think about what that future looks like, and we can live in it today. And so the areas that we're talking about are the 3 areas that are
that are in the work that you are launching today and doing today. I mean, it's about food, it's about your home, and it's about the way that you get around. And that last piece, the way that you got around, I really got very committed to when I was pregnant with my son in 2010. And the reason for that was I was really looking at, I was doing all this research on how to sustainably have a baby. I actually even wrote a book on how to sustainably have a baby. And one thing that just kept coming up over and over again was like, how am I going to continue to reduce our family's footprint when we are going to have an additional person in the house? And as I was looking through our carbon calculator, and, we look through our carbon budget the way most people look through their financial budgets, very, very carefully each year. And I realized that there was just no way, if I was living the life that I had been living of going to COPs all the time and traveling internationally all the time. And so we started to really, really cut back our transportation related emissions when we set this goal for ourselves that every year we would, as a family, further reduce our carbon footprint from the previous year. And we've been able to do that. And my son's 7 years old now. And I won't say that it is not without sacrifice. I'm very sorry not to be there. Seeing all of your smiling faces today is a great example. But, for every piece that is a little bit hard, like missing seeing friends in places, there's also great opportunities. So, for example, because I'm unable to go to the COP, what we've been able to do is find members of U.S. Climate Action Network, U.S. CAN, who are already going and provide them with extra capacity and extra support to do some of the tasks that we were already doing. And those are folks who are already there. And we're already planning to go. Similarly, I would say that even in our lifestyle, the things that are hard have positive sides to them. So in the summertime, when it's it's very, very hot because we don't use air conditioning. But the positive side is it means we end up going to the community pool and spending more time with our neighbors and having better relationships with the people around us. Or we end up going to a museum or a library and doing a lot more. So while there are definitely things that that are challenges, most of them have a really positive element as well, or else we wouldn't do them. We don't do this work because of a great desire to be martyrs. Although I really do love working with people who come at this issue from a faith perspective, because I find that talking about sacrifice is suddenly okay, where in some of our other member organizations, people don't like to talk about sacrifice. And I would say that there have been sacrifices involved, but the positive has been much, much better, because at the end of the day, it is healthy to eat a plant-based lifestyle. It is healthy to ride your bike to get around. It is healthy to not travel half of the year. And it's healthy to live in a home that's able to sustain itself, where you're growing food and you're not using so many electronics, and you're keeping that in check. So for me, it's actually been a really positive experience, and I love inviting others to join me, and it brings me such joy every time I see those additional bike racks getting installed in front of the room, or rooms full of people who are making commitments. So thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you, Kea. Wonderful stories. So I forgot to mention, Kea is Executive Director of U.S. Climate Action Network. So now we are going to hear from Juan first. Juan is from Brahma Kumaris, so he's also a youth representative, so he has some wonderful stories. Juan, please.
Thank you, Nana. And who couldn't be inspired hearing this magnificent story? I think it's beautiful to hear how many people are transforming their lives in very meaningful ways. I'm going to share my humble story, which is I'm originally from Mexico, and I moved to Canada almost 18 years ago, about 18 years ago. And as you probably know, people of the South, they move north to find a better place to live, to gain economically, to be more stable. And what I found out in Canada, in my Montreal, where I live, was actually that I found something a bit more precious than money. and it was my spiritual understanding of life. So what I want to share today is the story of the power of the soul, and how that story has empowered me to make little changes in my life, and at the same time be able to empower other youth to transform their lives in a way that it can be truly sustainable in many ways. As a young man, I became really aware of the problems of the planet, what's going on, but I had this kind of symbiosis between spirituality and ecology. There was, for me, a very deep subject that started to bubble up when I was very young. And I remember, looking at Facebook and seeing the Copenhagen conference, and I told to myself, I really want to be there one day. I really want to be there. I wish I could be there. I really want to help the world and give, share my understandings with them too. So fortunately enough, I got with the Brahma Kumaris. When I started meditating, I received an invitation to go to Mexico, to Cancun. And I actually started at that moment to connect more and more the dots of the link between this sacred activism. And that link is really, for me, the foundation of what I do right now in all my actions. And to give you more of details of that is about healing. I'm a homeopath, naturopath. And naturopath is really how to sustain your body with simple things, with food. It's going back to basics, basically, is how to eat better with simple food, and to also use homeopathy as an alternative medicine who can actually heal the body but also heal the soul. And those are medicines that they can be very economically and at the same time ecological foods. So this transformation happened to me in that way, and I decided to live a life more simply. So in Canada, I didn't pursue the dream of trying to buy a house, a car, and I decided to just use public transport all the time. And until now, I don't own a car. In front of my house, they have this, I can rent a bike so I can use it whenever I can. When I go to the market, I try to buy organic food, simple food, so it can nourish the body and the soul. And at the same time, try to reduce all my consumption. Like she was saying, there are little things we can do in my house. Instead of buying new furniture, I really, every time that someone who was, willing to share something, or was clean and so if you can go to my house, a lot of the things that I have are recycled. And I always try to recycle things in my house by building, using different furniture for different things. So a desk like this is actually my dining table. So I really use, I try to be very practical with these things. And I use, for example, a calendar in my house. I decorate it so it's now like a big frame, that is really decorating the house as well. So I do little things like this. I try to use the power of the soul to empower my actions. And I always tell myself, how can I live more simply? How can I reduce my carbon footprint? An example that I always give is by empowering yourself, you can recognize, you can become more aware that the little choices that you make, and I always give the example of the apple. I was in the market and I had the opportunity, you all have the opportunity to buy things, but we also have the opportunity to choose the right thing. And I remember having the apple from Quebec, from Canada, from my region, but also an apple from New Zealand. So if you don't care, if you don't have an awareness of what's happening in the world, if you don't open your heart and connect the dots that are all around us, well, you can just simply take the apple and you don't care. But if you really look at it and say, well, I'm going to take this one, which is a local food, then you know that it's better for your health. So again, for me, it's been a story of how to empower myself and how to explore different ways of simplifying our lives. And one of the things that I try to do is also to walk the talk. I'm a vegetarian. It's been for 9 years. And I remember when I became vegetarian, I lived with my sister, actually. I never told to my sister, you have to become vegetarian. It's better for your health, or it's better for the environment. It was actually 2 years after that she naturally mentioned to me, I think I'm ready. I want to become vegetarian. So sometimes you don't need to push people. You don't have to um, convince people of things. When you have an example, when you walk on earth by being an example, you can actually invite other people to follow your own path. And this is, for me, again, the power of the soul, the power of consciousness, the power of transforming ourselves so we can see the connections that are all around us and the connections that we have with the animals, with the minerals, with the plants, because we're all connected in this. And the more we are aware of the situation, the more aware we are also about ourselves, because she's a beautiful example of how in tune she was with herself, how in tune she was with everything, with her environment. So I think this is something that spirituality can help us do, to really open our hearts, to enhance our actions to be more sustainable, and to also give us a vision of the future, because this is also important. Our lifestyles need to have a vision of the future, because, and I was sharing this morning with the youth, that in order to live or to arrive to this civilization that we want to have, which is a sustainable civilization, we need to have a clear vision of that. And to arrive to that, idea, to that vision, we need to have practical solutions. And all the little things that we do at home counts, even if it's just choosing an apple, even if it's really, like she said, really transforming our lives to be truly sustainable. It counts for us and it counts for the planet. So I think the more we increase the power of love, the power of peace, the power of compassion, the soul needs all these qualities to regain the power that lost for so long. So this is the story of the soul, the story how to empower the soul. And in order to empower the soul, the way I do is to meditate. And meditation helps us to increase our wellness, our mental wellness, our clarity of the mind, have clarity of the heart. And in having that clarity, we can then pursue this road of sustainability. So if I may, if I don't know if I have 1 or 2 minutes, I would like just to 3 minutes. I would like to just give you the experience, or share with you the experience of what has been for me the power of the soul. And I would like to just have a simple meditation, because I think now life is about experience, and we need empowerment. Today we're saying that we need a lot of inner resilience. So to have inner resilience, we need to have this experience of empowering the soul. So I would like to invite you very briefly just to take a moment and sit. You can sit comfortable, no matter how you want to sit. There's no really a position. And if you want to leave your eyes open, you can do so. Or if you just want to close your eyes, you can also do so too. And meditation is very simple. You can just start by feeling your feet touching the ground, feeling your legs touching the chair. You can feel your back also. And just connect with your body. Breathing in, breathing out. And see how you connect with the present moment when you get in touch with your body. Just connecting with the body allow us to go within the self. We can go beyond our thoughts, our feelings, and just to be. So I invite you just to be with you for a moment and to experience the power of peace, power of love that lies within yourself. So again, I invite you to experience that, the silence within, because that's where sustainability begins. It's through the power of silence that we can enhance, through our spiritual power, all our actions. And we can feel how our heart opens, our mind expands. So keep this experience with you. I invite you to come back slowly to the body, feeling again, breathing in and out. And feeling the body, your feet, your face. And I invite you, if you have your eyes closed slowly, you can open your eyes. And I want to say project that I created is Eco Shanti. So I wish you peace and love so we can enhance all your actions in your lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Well, that's calming us off. So we heard from Kea, which is very energetic, and then calm from Juan. Now I'm going to bring us again to the other side of the pond, to Rabbi Kathy Allen from the Jewish Climate Action Network. And she's going to join us by video, by the Zoom.
Oh dear. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm sorry here. I'm okay. Can you hear me? Can
Hello,
you
Fletcher.
see me? Oh.
Can you guys hear me? Hello? Hey. Sure. How's it going? All right, I'll shut up now.
I'm sorry. I'm having technical issues. Okay, I'm very sorry about that. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm delighted to be here. And I'm sorry that you can't see me. I'm sorry that I didn't get my technical issues taken care of. So I'd like to share a little bit about my childhood. I was always connected to the sorry. So I had the good fortune to grow up out in the country, and through that, I made a strong connection to the living world beyond the human world. And I found nature to be both a place of play and enjoyment and wonder, and also a place for healing and for comfort and for solace. And so things in the house might not always have been joyful. There was pain in my family of origin, but out in the natural world, I was able to find a place of security. And so it's through that, I believe that dual connection of a place of healing and a place of wonder and joy and interest in so many things to do and see are the basis for the way I feel today about the planet and the more than human world, and also, as well, the people on the planet. At some point, probably about 15 or 20 years ago, my personal prayer practice began to be to pray outdoors. And over the years, it morphed in different ways, but at the present time, it still is a regular practice of going out in the morning and going out in the evening to pray. And so this is, over time, has deepened my relationship with the out of doors. It's brought more meaning to my prayers, and it's brought more meaning to my being outdoors. And so for me, it's about my relationship. It's about my relationship with the planet. It's about my relationship with the trees and the earth. And underlying that constantly is my relationship with other people, which is sort of, that's in a way a given. That's part of life all the time. I think we all have those relationships with people, but the relationships with the beyond the human world is different. And so I've found that it's gradually over time deepened, and with that love and with that relationship comes a sense of responsibility as well as the concern. And so I believe that those two things are the kind of basis for where I am today and what I'm doing today. And I find that the sense of if I'm eating the food that comes from my garden or another garden nearby me, if I'm digging up the weeds in my yard or in a vacant lot and eating them, if I'm harvesting wild berries, those things also just make me feel so much more grounded and a part of the earth and connected. And so there are these different aspects. They're all come together in what I'm able to bring to my own relationship with the earth. And so it's out of that sense of responsibility and love and connection that I have gradually tried to work to make my own life more sustainable and to help other people find ways to make their own lives sustainable, and also to make that stronger spiritual connection to the earth. For me, that's a really important piece of it, is bringing it to be more sustainable for other people, and that spiritual connection, which I feel so strongly, and wanting to share that with other people. And people have it, but sort of acknowledging it, honoring it, providing opportunities for people to find ways to deepen that. I lead services outdoors all the time, take people on spiritual walks. Foraging as a spiritual practice is one thing that I really enjoy doing with others too. So excuse me, the process of enriching and deepening our spiritual connection to the earth, because it has done so much for me, I want to help nurture that in other people. One of the Jewish thinkers who's influenced me a lot is Rabbi David Seidenberg, with his book Kabbalah and Ecology, the divine image in the more than human world, in which he creates a case, a very scholarly and thorough case for Judaism, saying that everything, not just humans, but all the plants, animals, all the quote unquote silent ones, the rocks, everything is in God's image, which for me is very consistent with, the very first words of our Torah, saying in the beginning, or when things were beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so this earth and this world and this universe is sacred. And I kind of feel that you can take that point of view no matter no matter how you view creation. It is something totally amazing and wonderful. But at some point, is the more that I've thought about that idea of God who created us in your image as opposed to created us, meaning all of us, as opposed to me or us people, has also brought me a greater sense of that feeling of holiness and sanctity that there is in the natural world. And so for me, that's an important piece of it. And what happened to me with my own sort of personal becoming more active in introducing more and more people to things was I was wanting to do climate action and work within the context of the Jewish community, and I couldn't find a way to do that. And so eventually, after a couple of false starts, I was able to find somebody else and enough people, a critical mass of people, to form a group that works on climate action together here in the Boston area. And for me, that's so important, because doing climate action in the context of my faith means that I can bring my whole self to it. And I can bring my spiritual self and my religious understanding and my passion for caring for the planet together in one place. And I don't have to sort of, separate things and divide things out. So these are the things that are the most important to me. And then having a base to work within the Jewish community makes it possible then to also enter into the interfaith community in a way that knows that I'm also connected to other people within my own community who are concerned about climate action. So those are the things that are the most important to me. And I just, I'm grateful to be here with you today. I'm sorry you can't see me, and I just thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi Kathy, and inspiring story. Now we have another one from Sabana Kitty, who is the project manager and Humanitarian Academy
Hello,
for
everyone.
Development.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
And
but
see me?
Yep, we can,
Yep.
Andrew, but we've got about another 10 minutes till you and Jill are on.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
I was confused.
okay, Sabana.
Rabbi Kathy, and inspiring story. Now we have another one.
Great. Thank you very much, Nana and Fletcher and everyone at Green Faith for inviting us to come and present. I stuck to the brief of including pictures mainly rather than having any text, so I hope that's okay. I'm from an organization called the Humanitarian Academy for Development, which is based in Birmingham in the UK. And we're part of a larger international NGO called Islamic Relief, which you might have heard of. Islamic Relief has offices in 40 countries across the world, and it's about just over 30 years old. We have offices in Germany as well. So my colleagues from IR Germany, Islamic Relief Germany, are also here today. And I wanted today to present a more kind of an organizational understanding of what faith means for us from a faith-based organization's perspective. How does our faith inspire us to do work around sustainable development, sustainable living, sustainable consumption, and the more general humanitarian response and development challenges that we face across the globe today? So I wanted to share from a Muslim perspective, and I wanted to emphasize the fact that this is one of potentially many Muslim perspectives, because the Muslim community, as all communities are, is a very diverse group of people and a very diverse set of individuals that will have different approaches and perspectives and ways of thinking. So I'll present a Muslim perspective around sustainable living and how that influences our work. There are many traditions in the Islamic faith around sustainable living and sustainable consumption. We have examples of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he encouraged people that even if they were using water from a river, that they don't waste the water from a river. And if you think about this example, a river is something that's flowing, that's always flowing, and there's no kind of turning it on or turning it off. But yet he's encouraging us as a community to be mindful of how much we're using, even though it seems that there's an abundance of it. But there's one particular verse in the Quran where God says in Arabic, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً, which means, and mentioned to O Muhammad, that when God said to the angels, indeed I will make upon the earth a khalifa, and the word khalifa in Arabic means caretaker, someone who looks after, who protects, who preserves. And it goes on to explain this conversation, this dialogue that happened between God and the angels. And so if we think about this position that God is saying that he's given to human beings as caretakers of the earth, it highlights and it demonstrates that we don't have a position of sort of like a kind of master slave or master subject over the earth, but rather that we have more of a caring and nurturing and protecting sort of role to play on the earth and for the communities that we live in and the people that we live with as well. And we also have this idea around the vertical and the horizontal relationship. So we have a vertical relationship with God, where we connect with God and we abide by His rules and laws and things like this, but also a horizontal relationship in looking after the people around us, in serving the people around us, and in looking after the earth as well. So I wanted to speak then a little bit about what this means for us when it comes to sustainable lifestyles, what it means when we talk about green, a sort of green approach. And within the context of Islamic Relief, this kind of has two sort of approaches, leads to two sort of approaches within our organization. One is in the way it inspires our thinking, and the other in the way that it inspires our behavior. And I'll explain what I mean by that. In terms of our thinking, we're really keen to understand more about what kind of role faith plays in encouraging and promoting behavior change. And when it comes to climate change and sustainable consumption, this is really key. You might have had certain examples, and I have a colleague in the room who's worked in Tanzania who's looked at the role of dynamite fishing, Cameron. So within Tanzania, there's a community there who were doing dynamite fishing. And for many, many years, a lot of NGOs went in and they tried to encourage the community that actually dynamite fishing is not a good way to go and it will lead to harm caused in the natural environment. The community weren't really convinced by the idea, and then eventually some faith leaders started working with the community and said, actually, according to what we believe, according to our Islamic tradition, we have a responsibility to look after the environment. And that caused, really interestingly, a shift in behavior among the community, who then said, oh, actually, it's part of our faith, it's part of our tradition to look after the environment. And so we're really keen to understand more about what sort of role faith can play to motivate and encourage behavior change. One of these things is a project looking at, it's a bit of a long title, it's called Action on Sustainable Consumption, Action on Climate Change and Consumption. And we're working with 10 countries across the world. So we've got 4 in Africa, Niger, Kenya, Malawi, and Somalia. In Asia, we've got Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. And in Europe, we're working with Germany, Sweden, and the UK. And really what this project is about is working with local communities in each of these 10 countries to do community mobilization work on reducing our carbon footprint, and also creating more awareness and understanding of what we can do to live more sustainably. We have a number of different sort of areas of work. So I mentioned the carbon reduction and the advocacy. We're also doing some research on an Islamic approach to sustainable consumption, really trying to unpick and understand what sustainable consumption means for Muslims and Muslim communities, and how that research can go and encourage communities to change their behavior. And this is our thinking, really. This is how our faith values from our tradition inspires our thinking. But also, when it comes to behavior itself. And what I mean by that is our colleagues within Islamic Relief Germany are supporting some great work in Bangladesh. And this project is around, it's called the Integrated Sustainable Development Program, or ISD for short. And this project is looking at how we can how communities can be better served, all of their needs can be better served through a more integrated approach to development. And you see, I think we had earlier, someone mentioned the fact that climate change is causing a lot of issues in migration, but also particularly in food security. And we're seeing now a lot more that we have these huge challenges being faced across the globe on food security, on livelihood opportunities. People don't have access to work, and this is having a huge knock-on effect on their ability to live. Really, what I wanted to kind of portray and convey to you all is that the role of faith is really important, as we all know, and it has a really interesting role to play in inspiring the work we do and how we approach the communities that we work with. So thank you very much.